Let us begin assembly of the autogun starting with the magazine, since it is the only part of the prop that requires any gluing. The magazine consists of a left and right half that needs to be glued together like so, and a base piece that goes on the bottom and is held in place via these two tabs that go into that recess there. Once you've glued this piece together, for added effect, you can, optionally, add bullets into the top of the magazine. It's designed to hold 3, so here I have 3 of these printed, with the projectile being separate so you can print it in a contrasting color like I have here. Now with the 3 bullets assembled, you just need to make sure you get the orientation right when you glue these bullets into the magazine. To make sure you got the orientation correct, make sure that the flat part of these little protrusions, these are the protrusions that lock onto the locking mechanism when you push the magazine into the body of the prop. And the flat portion here faces the back of the prop, which means the bullets have to face this way, like that. There you go. You can see with that protrusion, the flat part faces backwards. And I will glue this together off camera. And now, with the magazine assembled and glued together, we can move on to the rest of the prop. Here we have the main body of the prop into which the mechanism for the bolt, as well as the release mechanism for the magazine, will be placed into. Here's the two parts. This is the internal frame. This is the latch mechanism that locks the magazine onto the body of the prop. I'd like to draw your attention to these little hooks here that hook onto the magazine, as well as these little holes. They will become relevant later. Notice this protrusion here, this elongated protrusion. It corresponds to this elongated recess here into which it's supposed to go. It takes a little bit of finesse, but you're supposed to place the latch mechanism into the internal frame with these protrusions being next to each other. And there we go. I placed the mechanism inside. There's the latch mechanism. Now we need to make the latch mechanism work, and there are two ways of doing that. One way is to place tiny springs into those holes there that correspond to those two holes there. And those holes are meant to house those tiny springs that you find inside a push action pen. But if you don't have any of those lying around conveniently, then you can use elastic bands that wrap around these protrusions here, like so. You put one end of the elastic band around this protrusion here, and then you slowly wrap it around those other protrusions there, and there you go. There's the latch mechanism. Now, I prefer the latch mechanism to be a little bit stiff in its action. To facilitate that, I will be placing an additional elastic band in the same location. But you can use one if you're okay with that. And there we have the latch mechanism assembled. I have two elastic bands to make sure the mechanism is rather stiff in its operation. And then now we need the bolt, which is here. And then we need this piece here. This is the little piece that the bolt kind of bumps into when it slams forward. And you can see this triangular recess here into which those two tabs click into. So I will put that there, in there. There we go. And then the bolt mechanism slides along the top of the internal frame, this piece here inside the prop's main body. And then you also need this piece. This piece will become relevant later. Now let's continue the assembly by placing these pieces into the body of the prop. Here we have the internal frame as well as the latch mechanism, and as well as the little end stop that into which the bolt will slam into as it is pulled forward by this elastic band that we will now put in its place. So what you do with this elastic band is you put one end onto that protrusion here, and then what you're meant to do is wrap it around like this onto down the left side of the internal frame. And then you grab it and you put the other end onto that protrusion there onto the bolt. And there you go. I have placed the elastic band in its place. As you can see, it wraps around this end stop, and you can imagine this bolt will slide back and forth inside the body of the prop. And what I recommend, the way you place these pieces into the body, is you take the bolt and you put it back down like this. because the bolt and the internal frame will not fit through this opening in the back of the body. So what you do is you slide it in like this, and notice these protrusions here. These will actually slide down into the magazine well here. So let's slide that forward, all the way forward. Here we go. And there you go, it has slid down like that. Now remember this piece, what you do is you take that piece and you slide it down into the body of the prop in front of the bolt, before you insert the bolt, and you slide it all the way down. And what this piece does, it braces the internal frame against the top of the body of the prop, and it prevents it from popping out in the event that you slam the magazine home. It's just a reinforcement piece. And then you take the bolt, and into the body it goes. Let go, watch your fingers. There we go. You have the bolt and most of the mechanism already inside the body of the prop. Let's continue assembly of the latch mechanism. Here we have these 4 pieces. These 2 pieces are connectors, and this is the button that goes on the outside of the main body of the prop. These connectors are responsible for connecting the button to transferring input from the button down into those latch mechanism, those 4 hooks that I showed you earlier. See these 2 protrusions? They correspond to the 2 holes on either side of the latch mechanism that I showed you earlier. So the way you place these inside is you take them, you slowly slide them down the magazine well, and you lever them up. So these 2 holes actually are pushed into these 2 protrusions are pushed into those 2 holes that I showed you earlier on the latch. So it looks like this. With this square hole to the back of the frame of the main body, you can see this rail here for the pistol grip. This is the back. You place it down in the magazine well, and so those 2 protrusions line up the 2 holes. There you go. And then you slowly lever it up until those 2 protrusions go into those 2 holes. And you do the same thing on the other side. And then lever it up. There we go. Until those 2 holes go into those two protrusions, pardon me, of the connector goes into those 2 holes on the latch mechanism. And these are self-explanatory. These 2 tabs go into that square hole here that I showed you on the connectors that were supposed to be facing the back, with this long end here facing the back of the prop. So this is the wrong side because this is the back. So this piece is supposed to be facing like this, towards the back. So I push that in, and there we go. You can see it has clicked into place. Same thing, this long side facing the back of the prop. Here we go. Push that in, and there you go. You have an ambidextrous locking mechanism. Let's continue by finishing assembly of the bolt. For the bolt mechanism, you have these 3 pieces. This is the handle for the left side of the prop that goes in there like this, and make sure that hole faces front to back like that. And then this piece, push that in, and then you pull back, and then you take this pin and you push that through that hole there, holding the 2 handles in their place. And it has a tapered front, so the tapered front goes in, push in. It will protrude a little bit. That's normal. That's to facilitate it being disassembled so you can pull it out. And as you can see, there is the bolt assembled. You can pull back a little bit on the left side and push up, and that will lock it in its rearward most position. Now here on this front block, I left a little bit of a gap between this and the bolt, and the reason for that is you can put a little rubber pad here so it doesn't just slam forward with a loud clang if you don't like the noise. Now let's continue assembly with the rearmost part of the prop, the buttstock. Now the buttstock is a folding stock. You can see the hinge mechanism here, and to lock it in its folded and open state, you have these 2 pieces. This piece locks it in its open state, and this locks it in its folded state, and this is the pin that holds this piece in its place. Let's start with this piece. This is the piece that allows the stock to be locked in its folded position. And the way you put the elastic band on this is you feed it through this top cylinder here behind it. You feed it through like that, halfway, and then you grab the 2 ends and you put both ends around this hook here on the buttstock, like that. And to put it in its place, it's actually really simple. You push it all the way up, push down, let go, and there you go. That's one of the 2 locking mechanisms. Here's the other one. For this one, you grab the elastic band, you feed it through this protrusion here, like that, and you feed it through itself So you can hook one end around this locking mechanism. And then what you do is you take the other end and you hook it to this middle protrusion. This is the piece onto which the other end of the rubber band goes around. This is just a bump stop to prevent this from folding in. This is what it rests up against. And then this piece here, you're meant to feed it behind it and around. There we go, like that. So you can see the other end hooks onto this piece here. It goes around this piece. You can put this mechanism in its place like that. And here you have the pin. You push the pin down in its place. It takes a little bit of finesse to line up the two holes. But once you do, it should not be flush. It should actually be recessed inside its hole. And if you do need to remove it, there's a tiny hole here into which a paper clip, and you can use that to push the pin out if you do need to disassemble it. But as you can see, there's the locking mechanism, and there's the other locking mechanism for the folding stock. That's the folding stock assembled. Let's put this aside. Here's the body of the prop again. We will be now assembling the front parts of it, the front grip, the barrel shroud, and of course the barrel itself, as well as what is in lore referred to as a front weight. This in lore is referred to as some sort of counterweight. Here's the front grip, the thermal shroud, and the body. And as you can see, on the body, there's this T-shaped protrusion that corresponds to this T-shaped kind of recess here on the thermal shroud, as well as on the grip. What you're meant to do is kind of self-explanatory. You're meant to slide the grip up onto the body of the prop, like that. It requires quite a bit of force to do this, since it is a major structural component. And there you go, you have the front grip on. It has very low tolerances here to make sure it doesn't come apart on you mid-cosplay session. Here you have this rectangular recess here that corresponds to this rectangular protrusion here. You also have a square protrusion here that corresponds to this square recess there by my thumb on the thermal shroud that allows the front weight as well as the barrel to essentially click in place. And in here goes this barrel, elongated end into the barrel here. The other end goes into this circular recess there on the body. That, and the entire piece fits together nice and lovely. And then now we crown the whole thing with this lovely thermal shroud that slides onto the main body of the prop, similarly to how the grip on the bottom did. Once again, a significant amount of force is required, since you don't want this coming apart on you mid-cosplay, and it is a major structural part. And if you assembled it properly, it should be completely flush, which it is here. Let's check the other side. Once again, check here. It should be completely flush. If not, you need to apply more force to get it into its position. The barrel is in its place, and you should be able to lift the entire prop from the barrel itself. So just grab the barrel, and then you can see I'm holding the entire prop. It's not going anywhere, though you can still disassemble it if you do need to. Now, let's continue assembly with the rearmost part of the prop that we assembled earlier, the buttstock, which we will connect to the main body. But before we do that, we need to connect the pistol grip. Now, the pistol grip consists of two parts, the trigger itself, and of course the pistol grip. I recommend using this as the first layer, and Z-axis going in this direction, with some supports here in the trigger guard. This trigger itself, it has 3 holes on the back, and these 3 holes are where you're supposed to place 3 springs from a push-action pen like this. You don't actually have to put 3, 1 is enough, but I would prefer a stiff trigger, so I will place 3. And then you slide the trigger with the corresponding springs into the pistol grip, and there you go. And you slide that into this rail here. In there it goes, and you can see there's a square recess here into which the pistol grip goes. And there we go. That's the pistol grip in its place. Now let's put the end cap. Here's the end cap. It houses the other side of the folding stock mechanism. It goes onto the back, quite self-explanatory on how it does so. Here you just line up this piece with the rail on the bottom and this tab with this hole at the top. Now, obviously, this will simply just come off the back if you don't do something about it. So let's do something about it by placing the top and the bottom pin in its place. Here you have the top and the bottom pin. This pin here goes into that hole there, and what it does is it prevents this cap from sliding off the back. This cap is difficult to print. You can see some artifacting here. That's because to 3D print this, you do need a lot of supports. And when I printed this, I actually used this as the first layer, which required a lot of supports in this area. But unfortunately, this is a major structural part. Do not cut it. Just print it as one piece. It will require a lot of supports, but you do need it as one piece for structural reasons. The bottom pin goes into that recess there. Make sure that the flat end faces the back of the prop. And see those holes on the end of the pin? That's for disassembly. So what you do is you take a paper clip and you thread it through one of the 3 holes there, and you can yank it out if you do need to disassemble it and get at those elastic bands on the inside. Push it in, and it should not be flush. It should be absolutely recessed, like that. There we go. That end cap is going nowhere. Here is the folding stock. Line up the hinge mechanism like that. Insert the pin. The pin has a little bit of a hat here. That goes towards the top of the prop. Slide it in. Take a little bit of finesse to line up those holes. And there we go. In it goes. To prevent this pin from sliding out the top, there's this piece here. This is just a little C-clip that goes on the bottom. There we go. That pin is going nowhere. And as you can see, I can lift the entire prop from just the buttstock. And there is there we go. You can see the latch mechanism working on this end. And to lock it in its folded position, you have this piece here. Fold, and it locks into this protrusion here, like that. Push up on this button on the bottom, and there we go. It has locked in its place, so you should be able to up the entire prop and lift it from the folded stock. And to unfold it, push up onto that button on the bottom, and there you go. It has locked in its open state. Lovely. You have the mechanism, and there you go. We're still not done yet. You need to add the rear sights, 2 hooks here. Push down on one end. You push one hook into that recess there, and then you kind of bend the entire sights like that. See how I'm pushing down? And then it will snap in place. Lovely. That carry handle would be lovely for carrying this prop around. And you have 2 holes here, and also have a hole on the front weight here. You can put a strap on this so you can carry it during cosplay conventions. And then, with the main body of the prop assembled, all that is left to insert the magazine. With the magazine inserted, the prop is now complete. Thank you for watching this episode on the Agripinaa style autogun prop that I made. Model is linked in the description if you do wish to 3D print it. And for your next project consideration, the Agripinaa 40K autogun. Thank you for watching.